Local government in Oxford are proposing to divide the city into 6 zones, ban vehicle travel between the zones, and limit the number of times you can leave your home and travel out of your zone. If you wish to get from one zone to another, you have to travel out, and that'll be counted as one of your trips, out to a ring road, go around the ring road and come back in to another zone. This will be limited. The number of times you can leave your home with your car, they are talking about 100 times a year. After that, you pay a penalty. In fact, a very heavy penalty of about £100. This is a total restriction of your freedom of travel. If you wish to apply for extra trips, you can apply to a council official to see whether they will allow you to leave your home in your car. You can, of course, walk or cycle between zones. Here is just one example of the madness of this policy. But bear in mind that the most important thing here is that local government is now trying to restrict your freedom, not just of travel, but your total freedom.
I'm a grandmother who picks up her grandchildren up every day from school in North Oxford. It's a 3-mile drive and it takes about 10 minutes, and the traffic is always light at the time. With the traffic filters, I will have to drive north, take the bypass up to Iffley Road roundabout and drive along Iffley Road. That will be 12 miles and it will take 30-40 minutes, depending on traffic that is already heavy. Residents like me only have 100 passes per year. At the moment, I still have a very active life and see my family every day, but the filters could seriously affect that. They could isolate me at my age, that can be dangerous. Furthermore, these policies will make the traffic and pollution on both the Ring Road and the A34 far worse. Along the bypass, lots of flats and houses have been built in the last decades. Why are these people less deserving of clean air? In fact, pollution will cover all of the city, also the centre and the side roads.
Now the next man, and we know that this is not about science, they're not doing this for scientific reasons or for climate change, it's all about control. And we do have an expert here with us today, a climate change expert, who's made a mathematical model of climate change over the last 50 years. Now this man is absolutely amazing, and he will tell you what the real science is and why this is so unnecessary. Please give a massive round of applause to Paul Burgess.
Hi everyone. I have a website and I have a channel on YouTube called Climate Realism by Paul Burgess. I don't make a cent from it. In fact, it costs me money, right? Can you hear? Okay. Okay, I'm going to have to shout a bit. Is that better? Right. I have a YouTube channel called Climate Realism by Paul Burgess. That is I don't make a cent out of it. In fact, I subsidise it all. And that is where you can go and get the real detail behind what I'm going to say today. But what I'm going to say is this, and I've been involved in this. I'm 78 now. And my qualification is my grandkids for doing this. I make lots of videos exposing the false science. And the most fundamental thing I want you to take away is this carbon footprints nonsense. Carbon is actually good. More carbon, more CO2 is actually good. You know, and today, all these conferences, all these COP meetings make no difference at all. If you plot the growth of carbon by the graph that everybody agrees on, there is no change when you have a COP meeting. All these $1 trillion spent on it achieve nothing. Today, we are producing more CO2 than ever before. So why are all these politicians pretending that we're reducing carbon? We're not, but I want to see more of it. Now, I'm going to give you an example of some science. 32 scientists in 12 countries with 24 institutions involved. They made a study of NASA data, satellite data of the Earth. And they did it over 30 years. And vegetation on Earth grew by 14%. That's the same as 2 USA land masses going from nothing on them to full of vegetation. And they said 2/3 of that was caused by CO2. That's the sort of benefit. It's why we put CO2 into greenhouses. So the whole basis, the whole bedrock of climate alarmism is wrong. Absolutely wrong. And today, look it up. Look it up on World of Data. Look it up on Google. We have record crops in Africa, record crops in the Far East, record rice crops, record all sorts of crops. And that's because of CO2. Right? So more CO2 is good. It also does something else. We have been through a CO2 famine just pre-industrial revolution when the CO2 level was really low. The plants were gasping for it. They couldn't grow properly. We had starvation. In that world they want to go back to, we lived really in a peasant community, starving. And what happens when you give a plant more CO2 is it needs less water. So that's why the German scientists did a study on the Sahara Desert and found it decreasing in size, not increasing. All the evidence is there for you. Right. Let me give some examples now. I used to be in charge of Wales, planning water resources and things. I built a model in the 1970s which really interested me. It was based on really trying to understand the river flows in a rain-fed river system. And in that model, I discovered the solar sun cycle, the 11-year sun cycle. That sparked my interest 50 years ago. Now, if I take droughts, we are now getting less extreme weather than in history, than in our short term over a few hundred years. It's less extreme. The biggest drought in the UK was 1775. Nothing has come near it since. What's the next biggest drought? 1798. This is the world I want to go back to. What's the next biggest drought? 1808, then 1854, 1887, 1890, 1921. I've just read out the top 5 droughts, the top worst droughts in British history. And it's the same for floods. They go on about the Pakistan floods, but look at history. And by the way, Pakistan has reduced its forests so much, it's down by, I think, about 90%. Because when you've got poverty, people chop down wood. People chop down the wood to get the energy. And that causes floods. But the floods in the past were worse. Forest fires, here's a good one. You may have heard of a bloke called Biden. He came into power. And he didn't like the record on forest fires. Because it's only 20% in America now what it was in the past. In 1920s and 30s, it was 5 times higher. And this data was on the public government NOAA website. So when he came into power, do you know what he did? He deleted the data prior to it. He just deleted the data. You'd have to be a nutter to accept that. They actually hide it. Hurricanes are less. Tornadoes are well down. Well, let's go on about Antarctica. You hear the stories about a high temperature in Antarctica. By the way, it's true. From South America, you can get a little blast of wind, as it were, that brings some hot air to the peninsula. Antarctica is now the coldest it's ever been on record. Check that online. It's the coldest it's ever been. And actually, funny enough, more CO2 cools Antarctica. But, you know, that is a fact. And that was also established by satellite and by terrestrial observation by a group of scientists in the EU. And I quote all these on my website. My YouTube channel is designed to give you videos that link the science that anyone can understand. And one of the best compliments I had was my 11-year-old son understood it and said, hey, that's not what I'm taught at school. And the real sin is teaching children at school this absolute rubbish. Because for the last 30 years, there's been a mass brainwashing movement of children. Right. Well, let's go on about drowned islands. None of them have drowned. 90% of them have grown. 8% growth overall. Tuvalu, or Tuvalu, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, the most prone island in the world, the one they featured. This is going to go first, has grown 2.9%. But it doesn't stop their leaders sitting in a pool of water on a show saying, help us, give us money. That's what the whole of the IPCC is about. It's controlled by third world countries. They even write the scientific report at the end that goes to all the politicians, called a summary for policymakers. I do a video on that. On the coral in the world. The Great Barrier Reef is now the record healthiest it's ever been in history, that we, in recorded history. And coral around the world, 80% of it is healthier than it's ever been. That's a recent report. Power generation. Now, what they're doing today is signing contracts with wind and solar to bake in high energy costs for you. I'll give you something now you can check. They'll say this wind farm can do 10,000 houses, or this solar farm can do 5,000 houses. It's not true. And they say they use off-gem figures. That's true. But the off-gem figure has 2.9 of it, or 20% will say, is electricity, and 80% is gas. So in other words, yeah, they can claim they can do 5,000 houses, providing those houses have 80% of their energy supplied by gas that they're trying to do away with. And this applies, I can promise you, I've got a video on it, this applies to every single claim by every single wind farm, and anyone can see through it. So I went to the developers of one near Swansea, of a solar farm. I went to the developers meeting, and I said, how much power do you produce? They couldn't answer me. They couldn't even get the units of power right. Right, that's how bad this is. So we're now paying, sometimes, wind farms 50% of the time not to turn on. We have to pay them not to give us the power. Why? Because overnight, when demand is low and the wind blows, the contract says we still got to buy it. So we can't buy it. We haven't got a use for it. You have to keep the grid in balance. And so what happens is we have to give it away, or we have to pay people to take it. We pay Belgium to take the energy from us. Three wind farms in Scotland were studied by a group of MPs. 50% of the time they were paid not to give us power. 50%. If Ed Miliband and the next Labour government, if it comes in, has their way, they want to treble the wind farms. That's going to mean that most of the time, all the energy from wind farms is going to be paid, even though they don't turn on. Because we're going to have so much overnight energy we can't store. And I've done a video on this because no one's doing the maths. I could go into detail. Then, as a cheaper way of getting around this, they're saying, let's pay you not to take the energy between 4 and 6. Up to 10 times the price. It's 33 pence a kilowatt hour for me now, and they've offered me £4. Right? That is cheaper. I'll tell you why. Because when the solar farm gets paid, it doesn't get paid solar farm price or wind farm price. It gets paid the highest price on gas that day. And you know, we've gone 50 times the normal price. So everyone gets paid a super high price. It's an absolute con. And these are all being baked in now. The Welsh Government on that solar farm, so I'm now coming to the next point, green. I have been an environmentalist all my life. At the age of 11, I gave pocket money to try and clean up our rivers. I've been involved in that at the highest levels. I was in head office in Wales. I was the 11th employee of the Welsh Water Authority at the time. And I, looked into the droughts, I looked into this, I had to design reservoirs, everything. That was my job. And they don't today bother when it's green. When it comes to green, the solar farm in Wales now they're proposing is on a 53-acre site with badgers, at an ancient forest, with 11 species of bats. I didn't even know there were that many. And when I asked the developers where's the environment report, there's none. The Welsh Government said, you don't need one. You try and get a house built without a bat survey or something. No chance at all. No chance at all. But you can get the green. If it's green, it trashes the environment very often. But they don't understand that. Wind farms in Germany, a study, 200,000 bats killed a year. 200,000 bats a year. 3,500 tons of flying insects. Birds. Many, many birds, especially birds of prey. So I could go on forever about all this. but it's on my YouTube channel in detail if anyone wants to follow. Now, I have tried to have debates with leading professors. In fact, Professor who's the best-selling book at the time on Amazon on climate change, only to discover they have no understanding of the data. I was absolutely shattered about the lack of understanding. I have tried to debate Extinction Rebellion. I've had 2 confrontations with them, nice debates. In the first one, they ended up saying, Paul, you're wrong, when the wind doesn't blow, we use gas. So I had Extinction Rebellion supporting gas. In the second one, they said, oh, we can use a new coal method where we can bring in coal power very quickly. So I had Extinction Rebellion supporting coal. That's how mad this world is. Everyone runs away from debate with me. That's my problem. And when you see my YouTube channel, you'll understand why. And the biggest thing for my YouTube channel is to show it to kids, because it's designed for anyone. It really is. But it backs everything I say up with science and evidence. My dream would be to debate, and if the BBC's here, try this. My dream is to debate Ed Miliband on BBC, because he's likely to be in a Labour government, the one controlling all this madness. That's my dream. There's a challenge. Because they won't do that. Because the law of the land is, when it comes to climate change, this is the law. This is the law of the land. You are allowed not to give an even balance of argument when it comes to climate change. You can only present one side. That is a law introduced by Blair into legislation. Right? They have decided what the science was 20 years ago. They decided it. And that's not the scientist. And if you argue, like the born professor who pointed out that the coral reef in Australia, the Great Barrier Reef, was the healthiest it's ever been, if you do that, you get sacked. There is now a complete industry of tens of thousands of people, tens of thousands of scientists, whose mortgages depend on this alarmism carrying on. It's not true. And I'm willing to debate anybody, full stop. So bring it on, bring it on. I'll debate them, and I'll debate them in public. Right? Thank you.
I just want to say, guys, that we're obviously not fans of the mainstream media, right? No. We've got Panorama, BBC's Panorama, just here. Can we give them a big boo? We've got ITV. Can we give them a big boo? And we've also got another reporter from the BBC, and we give them a big boo. The biggest boo for the BBC. I'm just asking the Panorama guy, are you sure you want to come backstage? Thank you! Bullshit Corporation, that's where you are. Anyway guys, we'll crack on. We've only got 3 more speakers, very, very brief. And then we're going to get marching to make some noise, and then Panorama can probably come out with a massive hit piece of half an hour. Bullshit on the BBC again.